Welcome to RevCast, a Civilization podcast focused on its console platforms.
Grayson.
elthrasher.
Headless 10.
That was great content. That was really, really great content.
Really?
Oh, I think so.
Well, not you, Grayson, but Matt, that was awesome.
That thing you said about the stuff, that was awesome.
Yeah, I like that stuff.
Downloadable content. I finally bought it all and went through it, and it's different.
Different?
Mm-hmm.
Different in a good way?
Well, yeah, more maps, for one.
Did you have to pay any extra to download those extra contents?
Yep, sure did.
We talked about this on the CivRev special with Jason Bergman. Firaxis itself wasn't in charge of the pricing on the downloads. They would have preferred it to be free, but because of the platform with the Xbox Live and the way the store works, they have to charge.
Yep.
But it's like a nominal fee, right? Like $1.99 or something?
Microsoft has their moon currency where $5 gets you 400 points. So you have that transaction in your head.
Right.
I think the expansions were all set at 400 points apiece.
When does Microsoft ever give anything away for free?
Very rarely.
Well, if it's $5 in the US, it'd be more like $25 Australian.
The points are the same from country to country. It's just how much you have to pay for those points is the difference, which is dumb.
It seems that there were a lot of things that Firaxis was limited by in dealing with these different consoles and these companies. Something that they generally don't have to worry about when they do a PC game.
Mm-hmm.
They know that what kind of requirements your computer needs to run the game, and that's all they have to worry about.
Mm-hmm.
And this one, there was a lot of stipulations.
And that's probably why we don't have that Wii version that we've been coveting.
It's very possible.
But on the other hand, we've had maps and wonders and artifacts added for a nominal price, where in Civilization you had to buy Beyond the Sword in order to get those things. Now, granted, we didn't get extra civilizations and we didn't get expanded rule sets, but for a somewhat nominal fee, $2, $5, whatever, you still got additional content that wasn't in a boxed product and you had to pay $20 to $30 for. So there's trade-offs either way.
Totally, but
Though I think they could probably pull off a downloadable expansion pack.
Absolutely.
expansions like BTS give you practically a whole new game.
Mm-hmm.
The entire dynamics of Civ 4 changed with BTS.
Yep.
So in that regard, it's hard to say.
It's easier for them, though, to come out with a game with incremental changes and resell it in, let's say, 2011.
Mm-hmm.
Call it CivRev 2 and expand the rule set. As it's easier for them to do that. To go back to other games on consoles, look at like the Madden football series. Small changes still earn you $60.
I was really happy to see the downloadable content, the DLC for CivRev, but I was surprised, not even 4, 5, 6 months after the game came out, that all of a sudden there was no new downloadable content for the game, free or to pay.
Well, you're coming from a PC perspective, and I think you're looking at a difference between the console and the PC audience. And just based on my experience, I'm almost primarily a console gamer these days. Console games have that kind of short fuse lifespan. You find a couple games like maybe Fallout 3 and, what's the other? Burnout Paradise, which has been an incredible value these days. But DLC is delivered primarily kind of quickly within the first 6 or 7 months of the game's life. And you'll even see it, and this is kind of an uproar from the community, you'll even see that downloadable content isn't even content, it's just a key to unlock content that's already on the disc. So you're paying $5, $10 to just download the permission to use what's actually on the disc and is inaccessible without that key.
Oh, I remember Jason Bergman talking about that being a criticism, say a lot of, especially on the DS, where the amount of storage capacity is so limited, and people being like, grr, arg, and I thought, wow.
Yeah.
But I suppose it is a limitation of the technology.
Yeah, but I don't think Firaxis is looking at sales of the game anymore. I don't think the industry is looking at sales of CivRev. I don't think the industry is necessarily looking at the sales of, say, Fable 2. the downloadable content is done for that game. It's just that short lifespan and the expectations that the sales come early and then the game is basically forgotten.
You're right. The way the games work is they're on the shelf, they have the big marketing push. It's like a movie. There's a release window.
Mm-hmm.
And after that release window, yeah, they're getting into more downloadable content and pay for play. But to a certain extent, a marketing extension somewhat, and if that DLC pay for itself, it's not continued for long. Or, yep, guys, that's it. The sales of the downloadable content have trailed off. They know that sales of the primary game have trailed off, and so that's it. Little Big Planet has a lot of content which has been created by the users.
Yeah, great example.
But the paid download content is dribs and drabs. And at the beginning, when they first released it, there was a lot of stuff that they'd come out free and et cetera stuff. Well, now it's more tie-ins and bonus stuff.
Yeah. I don't have any kind of insider take on this, so I might be just kind of talking crap right now, but I have a feeling that the majority of downloadable content is made during the production of the game. Then it's just released in sections. Fable 2 might be a little bit of a difference there, and something like Burnout Paradise, I have a feeling that they kind of pounded on that a little bit and made content based on the whims of the community. But I think something like CivRev, the content was likely made during the production of the game and then held back, and then it's an easy $5, $10, $15 to have people, actually more expensive than that, but it's an easy few dollars to have people just buy what I would consider to be the complete game later on.
The downloadable content has to be within the structure of initial development. And so you sit there and say, wouldn't it be neat if we could do this? Well, you add the hooks in there and you add the code that can sort of handle some of these ideas and options, but you can't build in everything. That's something that just can't put in the ability to change the AI or something else. I mean, just as it was mentioned on the Focus, there's 16 civs. That's it. That's all. We can't do another civ in this game. You can't put a civ in through downloadable content. The size of the maps, that's fixed. Now, we can have downloadable content which provides a map, but we can't expand that map. That's hard-coded in.
Yeah, they had no intention. No matter how much we begged, we're going to get, like, the Leaning Tower Piece, or I can't remember any other downloadable content right now. That's the way it was planned. That's the way it's going to be. And as much as we might beg to have another civ added, they never intended it for it to go that way.
Most of those civs are pretty well the same anyway when you're playing against them.
Yeah, true.
It's more complex with Civ 4, but it's kind of akin to anybody saying, we should add this leader to this civilization in Civ 4 because it only has one leader. And I think that's all fine and good, but then it's, what are their traits going to be? And then what's the balance going to be?
Yeah.
And then it's, right. And it's like if you did that in CivRev, now you've got 17 civs. Well, how is that going to be different? You can just say, well, we can have it borrow from this civ and that civ and this civ. And you see that with the civilizations you've got right now in CivRev. A lot of the civilizations have the same bonuses. They just appear at different times during the game. There's only so much of that you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I suppose then with the downloadable content, perhaps now that there's this established base for CivRev, perhaps there are people, now that this sets, tie it into the ability of, say, just a simple map editor so that you can then appeal to more people to get into CivRev, and then if you have users creating content, that could then be more of an impetus for the developer and the publisher to say, yes, we're going to do this downloadable content, and it's going to be done during the development cycle. But if you did that, then here's the initial batch from Firaxis. Here's what we can do. You do better. And then if they see that there's the demand for that, they could see what other people have done and why is it so popular, and then maybe they could go in and start doing more of that and then extend the shelf life of CivRev. I have seen in several stores that still actually have PC games on the shelf, the Need for Speed title, released last year, admittedly didn't have the greatest reviews. It was discounted to $13.
Oh.
Whereas 6 months ago, it would have been $40 or $50. I saw Civilization 4 Beyond the Sword, which was released more than 2 years ago, $50. Mm-hmm. And I thought, they still must be making money. How can Civilization 4 Beyond the Sword, how can that, itself 2 years old, on the foundation of a game, 4 years since its release, can still be obviously commanding $50 and people will pay for it and people will still be making money? The extended lifespan thanks to modding.
Well, yeah, and you're looking at the difference between, for the most part, between PC games and console games. It's just the way it is. There's a lot to choose from on the console. There's a lot of crap out there, and I also don't think that they got the sales that they expected, to be told. I think they wanted it to be a little bit up in the stratosphere, and it just wasn't, and they kind of expected to have the same kind of longevity and initial sales bursts Civ normally does on the PC, and it just didn't. It did well. It did real well, but I don't think it just lit the charts on fire.
I think the reason successive Civs have done so well is because a lot of people remember what the previous one was like, enjoyed it, word of mouth, whereas CivRev, a lot of the evangelists for the Civ series looked at CivRev and went, whoa, no. Yeah. So now people are like, wait, there's Civilization? You can do what on a console game?
Right.
Really wasn't a lot that people were exposed to, so I think a lot of people were hesitant whether that could really work on a console version. For me, the draw, for instance, for Civilization was, it's like SimCity, only on a grander scale. And I was like, oh, okay. And SimCity at that point was on the up and up, new stuff coming out, being quite popular and current. Whereas now, if people said, if you're just strictly a console gamer, what could you say to a console gamer to say, well, I'm not sure I'm going to like Civilization? Well, Civilization is comparable to, at least in part, X on the console.
Yeah. Well, one great advantage the consoles do have is that for both the 360 and the PS3 are the downloadable demos. And I was just going through seeing what downloadable demos were for the PS3, and it's like Sid Meier's Civilization. Now, that was also a glitch there. It comes up under S in the list, not under C. But I said, oh, Civilization, and played through, and it was like, oh, I got to go get this. I'm going to play far too many hours of this, and it's going to waste my evenings, but I got to get this. So, I mean, that's something for the Xbox players and everyone else, is then just play it. Download the demo, whether you're on the Xbox 360 or the PS3, download the demo, give it a try. It may not be first-person shooter or real-time strategy game or whatever niche that people have put themselves in, but, there's people out there that have played the sim games and similar type games and say, this was fun, this was something good to play with, and then can go buy the retail version. But I didn't even know that it was on the DS. I somewhat regret having portable Civ. There's just that idea of being able to go out and play Civ in the doctor's office.
That was the big draw for me for CivRev. As much as I really like the shiny graphics that I saw Civilization Revolution can have on the Xbox 360, because that's what I play tested it on, I'm thinking, oh, there's this console system I'm going to have to buy. It's a few $100, and it's going to have to be on a TV in the house, and then there's going to be the game on top of it, and it's like, oh, geez, but I already sit down and play Civ on my computer. Well, the fact that it's cheaper between the platform, the console itself, as well as the game, but then also having the portability, I'm like, wait, I can't do that with Civ 4.
Yeah.
That was a really good thing, I think, as marketing goes, to have it on the console, which I think is one of the bigger draws for people like me who have been strictly on the PC, even a couple of years ago, before I previewed CivRev. If you had told me that there would be Civ on the console, and I was Civ on the console, I mean designed for the console, not the Civilization 2 port to the PlayStation like Activision did.
Yeah.
There's just like, why would I own a console? But it's the advantage for me. It seemed like I'd just be giving up too much. So there you go. It's great. It's a shame that whenever I'm traveling, I'm driving. I can't drive and play CivRev at the same time. That.
I can barely drive. I can't imagine. Do you find that there are specific wonders of the world, just like the single-player game, that everybody rushes toward? Leonardo's workshop is very, very valuable in a single-player game to be able to pop all your units at the same time. So does everybody rush towards that specific wonder?
The East India Trading Company is probably the most powerful wonder in both single-player and multiplayer games, I think.
I agree.
It generally boosts your trade output by 50%, which is just amazing.
And it works for a long time.
Yeah, and it lasts a long time, often until the end of the game.
It's important to note that online, not too many people hammer out wonders unless they're the Romans who have half-price wonders. Usually, when you see people getting wonders, most of the time using a great builder or rushing it with gold. Later on in the game, maybe in the modern era, if the game does last that long and somebody has a factory, they'll hammer it out. But it's pretty tough to hammer out a 200-hammer building like the East India Company, or even Hanging Gardens early in the game, it's 100 hammers. You're going to need a lot of time, and that's generally, you don't have that in the multiplayer game. Most of the time you see wonders rushed. The East India Company and Colossus early on, but I'd rather wait for East India.
I go back and forth on that, and I've regretted both decisions, so.
Oh, wow. Sounds like commerce, trade, and that early dumping of commerce at the beginning of the game is kind of key if you're going to jump for a wonder.
Just to be perfectly clear, trade refers to both science and gold production, because each city will specialize in one or the other.
But other valuable wonders, like Oxford, is really important.
Yeah, it can be.
You can get bombers really early. Industrialization as your last research tech or your highest research tech with some of the prereqs for it. You can get bombers before people get tanks. Samurai Castle is another one I build a lot. Hanging Gardens every now and then. Leonardo's Workshop every now and then, but it's not really worth it.
Yeah.
I use it more for defensive.
I do that too. I would say that it's a small percentage of my games where it's really a deciding factor, where maybe there's a few Knight or Legion armies and they all get upgraded to tanks, and then that really makes a difference. Most games, that's not happening. If it's going to end with tanks, it's because somebody got combustion first, put together a couple tank armies, and just goes on a rampage.
Right.
You don't need Leonardo's Workshop to do that. And in fact, unless you have maybe 2 or 3 armies to upgrade to also become tanks, it's probably not worth it, because Leonardo's Workshop is 400 hammers and a tank is 50, so, you can do the math.
But in single player, you can pretty much make Leonardo's Workshop happen for you 100% of the time. The Oracle works in single player, but doesn't work online.
It sort of works online.
It sort of works, but
it doesn't give you a choice. In single player, if you have the Oracle of Delphi, it will preview the attack and let you know whether or not you're going to win or lose, and you can decide whether or not you want to proceed with the attack. You might want to proceed with the attack if you want to soften up your enemy and finish him off with another army or something like that. Online, if you're going to lose, then you automatically back out, and you lose your movement for the rest of the turn. That's a difference.
Are there buildings that you say every city's going to have this building? You have to in order to play online, or do you build cities specifically for certain types of production?
My rule of thumb is, and I don't always follow this, and I guess it wouldn't be a rule of thumb then, no buildings before industrial.
None.
Hardly any.
Sometimes one barracks in medieval.
Right.
The reason for that is that I'd rather make more settlers in cities and make more defensive units, make more offensive units, definitely want to hit the seas. And by industrial, the buildings that I choose to build, which are generally just libraries, sometimes some markets and some courthouses, maybe. A factory if I get to modern. I like courthouses more than I should, and I build them more often than I should.
I got to say something here. I would get my ass handed to me with dessert online at this point. No buildings? I mean, I understand the tactic, but it's so unit-centric. I've always been more of a builder, from PC on up to the single-player game, but man, the mentality is so different between single-player and multiplayer. It's just a different world.
You could play single-player better if you use this, though, I guess, but I don't know.
That's right.
You should look at the BC era. Basically, you're to the industrial by the ADs if you build settlers instead of libraries. A library costs 40 hammers. 2 cities is going to produce just as much trade or science as 1 city with a library. 2 cities can become 4 and 8. You need to get those cities out quick. As many cities as you can that you can defend, so you have a good groundwork, then to build your buildings and kill everybody.
And the thing is that in a good game where things are coming together, get some gold early on and have some good space and some good resources to expand to, we're definitely hitting industrial by or around 0 AD.
Mm-hmm.
And if it ends up being a long game, if someone else is a strong player and is expanding well, and the game ends up in the modern era and maybe a non-domination victory, we are having buildings for the majority of the game.
Right.
Just that impetus is to get all the settling done, get a lot of cities out, because you don't want other people taking up those great spots.
Well, yeah, land is the only resource that's completely
finite.
There's not much more to have when it's gone. Let's say CivRev 2.
Yeah.
Somebody throw us a freaking bone. Graduated system of lobbies, or you earn your way into the higher levels of play. Do you think that would do well for this game?
Well,
or self-imposed lobbies?
Isn't there something like that on the PS3 where it's kind of poorly implemented, where if you get higher ranked, then it's impossible to get matches or something like that?
Yeah, but I think what they wanted to do on PS3 was to have better matchups, and so once you get highly ranked on PS3, it takes forever to find a match. I started out on PS3 and switched over to Xbox, but basically once you get kind of highly ranked, it takes twice or 5 times as long sometimes just to find a match, and then it'll end up just settling for anybody. It actually works the opposite way. I almost never find any top-ranked players when I'm on there if my account is highly rated.
So at any rate, I would say probably not. If I play for an evening, I will tend to run into the same people if they're also on for the evening. So it's a big enough community that you're going to get a game. You're not going to have to wait forever. I usually get a game within 5 minutes. If you start stratifying this and be like, I can't play you because my ranking's lower than yours or something like that, I don't see the benefit to that. Also, what if I'm on a new account or I got reset or something like that? Now I can't play anybody good until my ranking goes up.
Yeah, I can see that.
So I think the current system where you just match up against whoever's there, unless they came out with CivRev 2 and it was way more popular so that there's like literally thousands of people playing at a time, then something like that might make more sense.
I would love to have more options for formats. I think the biggest thing that people want is in teams games, you get randomly matched up with people, and that just makes people leave the game and come back and try to get matched up with their desired teammate.
Yeah, because people eventually will get matched up with their teammate. They're just going to spend 10 or 20 minutes leaving the lobby and coming back until it finally happens. So if they're going to go through all that trouble, why not just give it to them and let people match up to who they want?
But if you see somebody you recognize that kicked your butt 20 times over and you just don't want to do it, don't feel bad. It's not like a very macho environment or anything like that. If somebody doesn't want to play me, or if I don't want to play somebody for any reason, I don't feel bad about not joining that game. Go find different opponents.
Yeah.
It ain't Madden.
Sometimes I get sick of playing against the same civs over and over again, or sometimes when I see the same 3 beginners, I want to,
You want a challenge?
Well, yeah, I want a challenge, and so I'll leave, or people will leave when they see me sometimes, or, they'll start up a game and be like, oh crap, you're that guy, and I'm like, look,
How else are you going to learn if I don't kick your butt?
That's a valid point, but I think the best point to make is that it's just a game, so play who you want to play, and if you're not having fun in the game, then go ahead and quit and do something else, or play a different game, or start a new game, or all that kind of stuff. Sometimes I'm a real glutton for punishment, and I'll have an awful start, and someone's playing China, which is a really strong civ, and then getting all kinds of cities out, and I'm just like, well, maybe if I don't know. Point is that you don't really need to do that. The game's for enjoyment, so if it's not enjoyable, then start a new game.
Which is what I do often. I'm not a glutton for punishment. I'll throw up the white flag and go play a couple more games quickly. So beat me down early and I'll quit. But anyways.
So that's the strategy you take him on. If anybody's taking him on, just beat him
bring it.
And that's a challenge.
A lot of times, if I'm in a tough fight against someone, sending a lot of armies against each other, I have observed several times recently that I won the game because my opponent made defensive armies and I didn't. Say we're both at tanks and riflemen. What happens when you attack a rifleman with a tank? You win. What happens when you attack a rifleman army with a tank? You win, usually. So what's better? What would you rather have? You'd rather have a rifleman.
Well, 3 riflemen.
I can make 3 times as many riflemen as my opponent can make rifleman armies, which means that he has to attack me 3 times as much in order to get one of my cities. I think you can see this in all areas. Now, it's not always the case. If someone's bringing a horse army to a capital and you don't have any recourse, then yes, you should get an archer army. But you shouldn't just go straight for the archer army. I would say in 97% of my games, I don't build any defensive armies at all, period. I like to have 2 or 3 defensive units in any city that I think might come under attack, and I'll build more if I feel it's necessary. I played a game as the Zulu, and I was in the modern area where they get half-cost riflemen. I was working on a wonder in a big production city, and all these artillery showed up, so I switched all that production to riflemen, and I got 24 riflemen in the city in one turn. And guess what? I didn't lose the city. I never countered. Those artillery were there killing my riflemen for the rest of the game, and I won an econ victory. If I'd formed armies, then he could have killed my units 3 times as quickly. There's a time and place for a defensive army. I think it's important to be able to tell when it's appropriate to use it, but it seems kind of like a knee-jerk reaction to just build all kinds of defensive armies everywhere, and they really don't help. If you have 3 archers in your city and you make them into an army and I come with a catapult army, then 1 attack and it's my city. If they're individual, then I have to attack 3 times. Meanwhile, that's 3 turns and you can do something about it.
Definitely. I play that way as well. I build a lot of single units. I rarely form armies. I will say that there are the right times to actually form an army.
Sure.
If it means your survival, but usually I'd prefer to have single defenders and then attacking armies.
If your army is going to actually win, then go ahead and form it. English archers, probably I'm more likely to want to form that army.
And Greek pikemen or hoplites.
Yeah, sometimes if I'm playing a half-cost rifleman Civ, which are the Russians and Zulu and their tanks coming, you can build, 5 rifleman armies for the same cost as 1 tank army.
Mm-hmm.
Tank armies sometimes lose to rifleman armies, so sometimes I will form them into armies as long as there's no naval support, and I think I might win once in a while, but generally just single units.
Maybe it's a bad habit of mine, and I know it's not the best strategy, but if I'm winning a game, if I'm just stomping another guy to the ground, and I just need to kind of seal the deal, I'll build archer armies in a lot of my cities, just so they won't surprise attack me, or I'll build too many defenses. Not necessarily just archer armies, I'll build a bunch of single units, but just in case, I don't mind doing it then.
I can totally see that the only way that you're going to lose is if you suddenly lose a bunch of cities. I still don't do armies, though. I would rather just have 3 single archers in my city.
At least you still have a lot of heads up with the 3 single units.
Yeah.
Right.
You know long in advance what's going on, and you can stop it. The same thing, if I'm winning a game, I might not go on the attack. I might just keep expanding. If I know he's stuck doing nothing, I might just build more cities than I have to and tech my way up as opposed to going at them with catapults or knights or what have you, just to, well, I can tech faster than you, I can get the money techs maybe, and I can just kind of sit back and eventually the game is mine. There's nothing you can do.
I think there's another tip that we should not leave out. Elthrasher's always teaching this to people online, and that's about when you are actually forming the defensive army.
Oh, yeah. You have to scroll through the units. I need to form an archer army in my capital because a horse army's on its way or something. If I rush a new archer and then immediately form the army on that one, it won't be fortified. It will have 9 defense, and I'll probably lose. If I scroll through the units and flip around to the fortified one, I can form the army on that unit, and voila, I have a fortified archer army, which is going to have 15 defense as opposed to 9. That's something I see people screwing up as well.
You need to scroll through your units and find that blue shield.
There's the half shield and the full shield, and you might see them both. So look for this full shield. If you don't see a full shield, then pick the half shield.
Look for the full shield approval.
Same goes for offensive armies to form on veteran.
Well, no, that doesn't really matter.
If somebody's attacking your offensive army.
Well, if you have, for some reason, 3 non-veteran tanks and 1 veteran tank in your city and you wanted to form a veteran tank army, then you would need to flip to the veteran one because otherwise the 3 non-veteran ones would probably form into the army. I think I've had that happen before, which is kind of annoying.
Rookie.
It doesn't really come up as often with offensive units, in my experience anyway. But it's something that I've done so many times at this point because actually I used to form a lot of defensive armies. It's just a second nature now. I just automatically go and flip around to the fortified one if I'm going to do that.
Those statements that we've had where we say Civilization Light or people playing CivRev can graduate to the Civ 4 style of game or potentially Civ 5 or whatever comes out of there, that's all out the window now. That's just a dumb statement.
Well, I kind of agree. I don't have the attention span.
Well, I really think it's an awesome game in its own right, and I like the fact that I can play all the way to spaceflight in 2 hours if I want to do that.
For Access needs to listen. If this game has this much of a strong community that people don't even want to play other games, CivRev 2 has to be in the pipe.
Oh, yeah.
I sure hope so.
I see CivRev as having a lot of the breadth that Civilization 4 has, not necessarily the depth.
Right.
Sure.
I might still refer to it as Civilization Light, but I wouldn't want to say it's Civilization Light, period, and then not put that into context. Grayson, have you played any of the Civ PC titles before?
I've started a couple games, never finished one. I own Civ 3 and 4, but I'm just too addicted to CivRev.
For more information about RevCast, sibling shows PolyCast and Modcast, or about PolyCast in general, log on to the series' official website at thepolycast.net. Record date assorted 2009 and 2010.
Civilization Revolution Sounds clips copyright Take-Two Interactive.
Copyright Civilized Communication at civcom.net.